Welcome back. In this session, we are going to discuss the integration between Spark Pool and the Serverless SQL Pool. As we discussed previously, Synapse offers a number of compute options to be able to read and write the data to the data lake. We can use one of the compute engines for writing the data to the data lake and the other one for reading from it. This gives us the ability to choose the right tool for the right job. The integration between Spark Pool and the Serverless SQL Pool is equal. Even deeper than this, Synapse has an internal process that replicates the metadata from this Spark Pool to the Serverless SQL Pool. As a result, a table created in Spark Pool is replicated in Serverless SQL Pool for us, and we can query that without having to create it. This capability lets us take data from any of the data sources and process them via Spark Pool and create the Spark table. The Serverless SQL Pool then reads the data without any additional effort. This could then be used by the data consumers. Also, we can have BI tools such as Power BI, which is reporting with the Serverless SQL engine. A couple of key points I want to emphasize here. Firstly, Synapse doesn't allow any JDBC or ODBC connections to the Spark Pool. Microsoft's stance on this is that Spark is not an optimum solution for interactive query. So the recommended solution is to use Serverless SQL Pool as shown in the solution here. Secondly, as you know, Serverless SQL Pool is billed per data processed. Also, it doesn't have the concept of caching unlike the traditional databases or the dedicated SQL pool, so you want to reduce the query against it to reduce the cost. A typical solution is to use import query in Power BI rather than direct query, so the data is only refreshed when required and Power BI services the data to the users as and when it's required. Let me explain how the integration works with an example. First, let's say we are creating a database called DemoDB. In our Spark Pool pointing to a location in the Azure Data Lake, as you may already know, databases are tables and Spark are just metadata, and the data lives in the storage such as Azure Data Lake. So the metadata for the Spark Pool in the metastar will be created to reflect that. Then the magic happens. Synapse runs an internal process to replicate the metadata from Spark Pool to the Serverless SQL Pool metadata pointing to the same location in the data lake. So now we have a database in our Serverless SQL Pool which is replicated from this process. Similar process happens when a table is created in the Spark Pool. In this example, we are creating the table called Demo Table under the DemoDB. This results in the metadata being replicated in the Serverless SQL Pool in the same way. If you look closely, you will see a small difference as objects in Serverless SQL Pool are stored in the hierarchy of database schema, and then the table will be created in the default schema DBO. Now that we understand how the metadata replication happens, let's go through some important points. Firstly, metadata replication happens asynchronously, so there is a small delay in replication. I've noticed up to a minute sometimes. The replication is currently support Parquet and CSV files. I assume Delta tables will be supported soon as well. The replicated tables are read-only in the Serverless SQL Pool, so you cannot update them from the Serverless SQL Pool. You need to go back to the Spark Pool to perform any updates. The replicated databases and the tables will be secured at the underlying storage. For example, at the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 level. As you can imagine, the database names across all of the Spark Pool will have to be unique for this to work. So that's everything about the metadata replication, and that's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.